Ladies and gentlemen, what we are witnessing in 2025 isn't just another political standoff in Washington. It's the inevitable consequence of years of reckless decisions, fake promises, and economic denial. The so-called government shutdown isn't the disease, it's a symptom. It's a symptom of a political system that has spent decades borrowing from tomorrow to buy votes today and now. Tomorrow has arrived. Reality always wins over politics. That's the principle Washington has spent decades trying to deny. But here we are in 2025, living in the proof that truth can't be legislated away. For years, the political class has treated economic laws like campaign promises, thinking they could rewrite them with executive orders, stimulus bills, and central bank magic. They built a house of cards on debt, printed illusions to support it, and called it growth. But the storm has arrived, and no matter how many speeches they make, no politician can bargain with gravity when the fall begins. The shutdown isn't a failure of government. It's the moment when reality finally demands to be paid attention to. The problem is that most people were taught to trust the system more than they trust their own eyes. When inflation began to climb, politicians said it was transitory. When the dollar weakened, they called it manageable. When debt passed a $35 trillion, they said it was sustainable. Every lie was designed to keep the public calm, to keep the illusion intact. But truth has a timer, and when it goes off, it doesn't just expose lies, it punishes them. The shutdown is not about Democrats versus Republicans. It's about fantasy versus arithmetic. And arithmetic never loses. This is what happens when an economy stops being productive and starts being political. Instead of letting markets correct naturally, we injected stimulus after stimulus, pretending that borrowed money could create prosperity. Instead of saving, we spent. Instead of producing, we consumed. Instead of planning, we printed. And now, when the bills have come due, Washington is paralyzed by the same addiction it created. They argue on television about budgets and debt ceilings as if numbers are negotiable. But the truth doesn't care about their arguments. The laws of economics are like gravity. Ignore them long enough, and you don't just fall, you crash. The shutdown isn't a political event. It's a reckoning. It's the moment when every lie told in the name of economic growth comes back to collect interest. The politicians who promised you prosperity have delivered paralysis. The leaders who swore to protect the economy have bankrupted it. The shutdown is not a glitch in the system. It's the system finally revealing itself. Every speech, every vote, every temporary fix has been nothing but an effort to delay this moment. But delay doesn't erase consequences. It compounds them. If there's one lesson to take from this, it's that truth delayed is truth amplified. The longer you ignore it, the louder it returns. The same applies to your personal economy. You can pretend debt doesn't matter until the bill arrives. You can believe inflation is under control until your grocery receipt tells a different story. You can trust politicians until you realize their promises are backed by your labor, your taxes, and your future. When reality shows up, there's no refund, no reset button, just the raw outcome of your choices. So ask yourself, are you living by truth or by narrative? Because right now, millions of Americans are learning that the narratives they trusted were built on quicksand. The politicians have run out of money, the central bankers have run out of credibility, and the public is running out of patience. Reality has entered the room, and it's not leaving. This is the moment when illusions die and wisdom is born. And the people who see through the fog now, those who understand that economics is not a debate, but a discipline, will be the ones who thrive when the dust settles. The truth is relentless. It doesn't care about elections or approval ratings. It doesn't care about who sits in the Oval Office or which party controls Congress. It only cares about balance between what is earned and what is spent, between production and consumption, between truth and deception. Politics can distort that balance for a time, but it can't destroy it. Eventually, reality wins. It always does. And when it does, those who built their lives on truth will rise, while those who lived on illusion will collapse with it. The shutdown is a mirror. It reflects who we are as a nation and who among us is ready to face the truth. Pain is the price of progress. Every nation that has ever risen from the ashes of economic failure has had to endure discomfort before finding stability. Yet in today's America, people have been conditioned to fear pain rather than understand it. We've built an entire culture around comfort. Financial comfort, emotional comfort, political comfort, and that's why the slightest hint of struggle sends shockwaves through the public psyche. The 2025 shutdown isn't the end of the American dream. It's the beginning of its purification. It's the moment we stop pretending prosperity can be printed and start realizing that growth requires grit. Pain is not punishment. It's the tuition fee for wisdom. For decades, politicians have sold the illusion that progress can be painless. They promised us that deficits don't matter, that borrowing is harmless, that inflation is under control, and that government spending can solve every problem. But comfort built on credit is a fragile illusion. When you remove the artificial support, reality reclaims its ground. That's what's happening now. The economy is detoxing from years of fiscal abuse, and like any detox, it hurts. The markets are shaking, confidence is breaking, and the political class is panicking. But what they call crisis is actually a cleansing. You can't heal a system that refuses to admit it's sick. Pain is the signal that something needs to change. When inflation eats away at your savings, it's not just numbers rising, it's reality screaming that your money has been devalued. When businesses close and jobs disappear, it's not random misfortune. It's the natural correction of an economy that spent too long living beyond its means. And when the government shuts down, it's not chaos, it's the price of years spent ignoring basic economic discipline. Every problem we face now was earned through decades of denial. The pain we feel is simply the interest on that debt. Pain is not your enemy, it's your teacher. The same way your muscles grow stronger after breaking down through resistance, and economy becomes healthier after enduring hardship. Without pain, there's no correction, and without correction, there's no recovery. The politicians in Washington fear pain because pain exposes their failures. It reveals the consequences of their reckless policies. That's why they keep printing, borrowing, and spending to numb the economy just long enough to avoid accountability. But you can only numb reality for so long before it hits harder than ever. Look at history. Every great revival, from post-war recoveries to market rebirths, has been preceded by suffering. It's in those moments of collapse that innovation, discipline, and truth are reborn. America's current struggle is no different. The easy money era is over. The illusion of endless growth funded by endless debt has collapsed under its own weight. The pain we're feeling now is the breaking of the old, unsustainable order. It's the sound of false wealth evaporating and real value preparing to take its place. If you're feeling the pressure right now, rising prices, job uncertainty, shrinking savings, understand that this is your opportunity to grow stronger. Pain gives clarity. It strips away the distractions and exposes what truly matters. It forces you to think differently, to act responsibly, to rebuild from a foundation of truth rather than illusion. You can either complain about the struggle or use it as fuel. The choice determines whether you survive the storm or become a victim of it. In the end, every correction is a rebirth. The same fire that destroys also purifies. America's economy will not die from this pain. It will evolve through it. But only if people stop running from discomfort and start embracing the lessons it brings. Pain reveals the cracks in your foundation, not to shame you, but to show you where to rebuild stronger. The shutdown, the inflation, the instability, they're not signs of failure. They're signs that a false system is being dismantled to make room for something real. The sooner we accept that, the sooner we can begin again. Pain is the price of progress, and for those brave enough to endure it, it always pays the highest return. Stop waiting for politicians to save you. That's the harsh truth most people still refuse to accept. For decades, Americans have been conditioned to believe that every problem, economic, social, or personal, has a government solution. When the market crashes, they wait for a bailout. When inflation rises, they expect stimulus checks. When jobs vanish, they look to Washington for rescue. But the political class has never saved anyone. It merely postpones the inevitable. The 2025 shutdown is the perfect reminder that the government's power is an illusion built on borrowed time and borrowed money. Every politician who promises to fix your life is really just trying to manage your dependence, not your freedom. No one is coming to save you. And that's the most empowering truth you'll ever learn. The moment you stop expecting politicians to protect you is the moment you start protecting yourself. The shutdown has exposed what happens when people put blind faith in a system that feeds on crisis. It reveals how fragile things become when your safety, income, and stability are tied to political decisions made by people who have never lived by the same economic rules as you. Politicians don't create wealth. They redistribute illusion. They don't build, they borrow, they tax, they spend, and they blame. For too long, we've confused leadership with dependency. We've turned politicians into saviors and citizens into spectators. The result? A nation of people waiting for permission to live. When you depend on government to solve your problems, you hand over your autonomy. You trade resilience for convenience and freedom for false security. Every time you let them help, they tighten the leash around your independence. That's why crises always lead to more control, not more solutions. The more broken the system becomes, the more power they claim to fix it, and the more you lose in the process. Painful as it is, the shutdown has ripped the mask off this illusion. The government isn't shutting down your life. You are, by waiting for it to start again. This is the time to act, not to wait. You don't need Washington's approval to succeed. You need courage, discipline, and awareness. The people who will thrive through this chaos are those who take full ownership of their choices, who build skills instead of excuses, who see opportunity where others see collapse. The political theater will continue, debates, shutdowns, speeches, but you can't afford to live inside that illusion. You have to create your own economy, your own path, your own freedom. Every empire that collapsed in history fell for the same reason. Too many people outsourced responsibility to too few leaders. The citizens became dependent and the state became powerful. That's exactly what's happening now. The American system isn't broken because of one administration or one party. It's broken because citizens stop being self-reliant. We became spectators in our own economy, cheering for our favorite political team instead of building something real. The government's job isn't to save you, it's to serve you. But when people stop holding it accountable and start worshiping it, the roles reverse. Here's the truth that no politician will ever tell you your success depends on you, not on them. The system is collapsing because it's built on dependency, and dependency breeds weakness. Freedom demands responsibility. It requires that you think critically, act independently, and prepare relentlessly. If you want stability, don't wait for Congress to pass a bill. Create your own foundation. Learn to save, invest, and produce value. Build something that cannot be shut down by a vote or a political argument. That's what real power looks like. The 2025 shutdown should not scare you. It should wake you up. Every broken promise, every delayed paycheck, every failed program is a sign that the era of blind trust is over. The future belongs to the builders, not the beggars, to the thinkers, not the followers. If you stop waiting for politicians to save you and start saving yourself, you'll realize that freedom doesn't come from government. It comes from courage. And courage, unlike political promises, never runs out of funding. Real wealth comes from real work. That's a truth that modern America has forgotten in its obsession with quick profits, easy money, and digital illusions. For years, we've been taught that wealth is something you can trade, borrow, or print. Politicians call it stimulus, Wall Street calls liquidity, and the media calls it growth, but none of it is real until it's earned through production. The 2025 shutdown didn't just stop government offices, it stopped a nation that had mistaken speculation for productivity. It forced Americans to confront a painful truth. You can't consume what you haven't produced. The wealth of a nation isn't measured by the size of its stock market, but by the strength of its work ethic. We live in an age where everyone wants reward without effort. People chase viral fame, meme stocks, and speculative crypto bubbles as if success were a lottery, not a discipline. Meanwhile, the value of genuine labor, the builders, the makers, the problem solvers has been quietly dismissed. But when the economy begins to unravel, it's the producers who survive, not the pretenders. The shutdown is revealing the difference between those who create real value and those who merely shuffle numbers around. Real wealth doesn't evaporate in a market crash. Fake wealth does. Because fake wealth is just confidence in debt, in politics, in illusion. Real wealth is skill, innovation, and productivity. It's the sweat that builds something tangible, not the speculation that builds castles in the air. The hook here is simple. The real economy never shuts down. No government decree can stop a person who knows how to build, fix, or create something of value. When Washington collapses under its own dysfunction, the people who understand this truth will rise. Those who depend on paychecks funded by debt will panic. Those who create their own opportunities will prosper. Real work is the foundation of freedom because it doesn't rely on permission. It relies on purpose. That's why political crises destroy speculators but forge builders. America's greatest eras weren't built on credit. They were built on courage. The generation that built this nation didn't wait for stimulus checks or subsidies. They worked, produced, and innovated their way through hardship. They didn't demand comfort, they earned it. Today, we've reversed that mindset. We've created a culture that celebrates consumption over creation. We buy more than we build and expect more than we contribute. The result is an economy that looks rich on paper, but hollow in reality. The shutdown is simply revealing how thin that paper has become. When politicians talk about saving the economy, what they really mean is saving consumption. They want you to keep spending, borrowing, and depending because dependence keeps them in power. But real economic recovery doesn't come from spending borrowed money. It comes from producing real value. It comes from men and women who take pride in their craft, who build something that lasts longer than a fiscal quarter. The shutdown is forcing us to rediscover what true productivity means. It's reminding America that wealth isn't a number on a screen. It's the sum of our effort, skill, and discipline. This is a turning point. The people who adapt to this reality will lead the next era of prosperity. Learn something useful, build something tangible, create something that solves a problem, because when the illusion of easy money fades, and it always does, the world will once again belong to those who produce, not those who pretend. The shutdown isn't a tragedy, it's a transition. It's a reset for a society that confused speculation with strength and credit with competence. The people who survive this era will not be the loudest, but the most capable, the ones who understand that real wealth doesn't come from inflation, politics, or the printing press. It comes from real work, real value, and real purpose. And when that truth finally returns to the heart of America, no shutdown will ever stop it again. The crisis is the opportunity. Every period of collapse throughout history has always carried within it the seeds of renewal, but only for those who have the vision to see beyond the chaos. The 2025 shutdown isn't just a political or economic breakdown. It's a massive redistribution of awareness, power, and opportunity. Most people see fear. The few who think clearly see possibility. When the system cracks, that's when the light gets in. The difference between those who survive and those who succeed is mindset. The fearful wait for the government to fix what it broke. The wise see the collapse as a once-in-a-generation chance to rebuild on truth instead of illusion. When markets tumble and institutions freeze, the average person panics because they built their confidence on stability. But stability is an illusion in a system powered by debt, inflation, and politics. The crisis exposes what was always fragile. It strips away the layers of denial that comfort created. And when that false comfort disappears, the truth emerges. Those who produce, adapt, and think critically will thrive, while those who depend on systems will struggle. This is the defining hook of every crisis. It doesn't destroy everyone. It transfers wealth, power, and control from the unprepared to the prepared. Every moment of fear in the crowd is a moment of opportunity for those who stand apart from it. Think about the people who built fortunes during the Great Depression, the innovators who rose from the 2008 financial crisis, the entrepreneurs who thrived during the pandemic shutdowns. What set them apart wasn't luck. It was clarity. While the masses were focused on the fear, they focused on the fundamentals. They understood that chaos creates gaps and gaps create openings. When the world is uncertain, new systems, new ideas, and new leaders emerge. The 2025 shutdown is no different. It's not a dead end. It's a reset button. The question is, see who's ready to press it. Right now, while politicians argue and markets shake, opportunities are hiding in plain sight. Businesses that were propped up by cheap credit are collapsing, making room for real innovation. Inflated assets are deflating, revealing their true worth. The financial noise that drowned out productivity is finally fading. The people who spent years relying on the system are being forced to think independently for the first time. This is how every true revival begins, not in comfort, but in discomfort, not in certainty, but in risk. When the world stops working for everyone else, it starts working for those who adapt. Crisis has always been nature's way of cleansing the weak foundations and rewarding the strong ones. The more fragile something is, the faster it breaks under pressure, and what remains afterward is authenticity. For too long, America's economy has been built on imitation, fake wealth, fake stability, fake leadership. This shutdown is washing away the imitation and clearing the ground for authenticity to rise again. It's the moment when those with foresight will claim what fear leaves behind. So, while most people watch the news and see chaos, the wise see clarity. When others complain about collapse, the builders quietly plan for creation. When consumers panic, producers prepare. That's the silent shift happening beneath the headlines right now. Every economic correction redefines who holds power, not because power disappears, but because it moves to those who are ready to take responsibility. The people who can think critically, work efficiently, and act decisively will inherit the future that others abandoned. Every great era in history began with crisis. The end of one order always marks the birth of another. This shutdown is the breaking of the old illusion that government can manage prosperity through manipulation. Its failure is the invitation for individuals to lead, innovate, and build real value again. The question isn't whether America will recover. It always does. The question is, who will rebuild it? Those who prepare today will own tomorrow. The crisis is not your enemy. It's your moment. It's the storm that separates those who wait from those who act, those who follow from those who lead. And when the storm passes, only the builders will remain standing. Wake up before it's too late. That's not a warning. It's a necessity. America's 2025 shutdown is more than a budget crisis. It's a spiritual and economic alarm bell ringing across a sleeping nation. For too long, people have been lulled into complacency by the false security of government promises and digital distractions. The truth is that most Americans are too comfortable to question, too distracted to notice, and too dependent to act. But comfort is dangerous when it blinds you to collapse. Every empire in history has fallen, not because its enemies were stronger, but because its people stopped paying attention. The greatest danger today isn't the shutdown, it's the silence of those who refuse to see what it means. Reality doesn't wait for you to wake up. It drags you out of bed. Inflation doesn't care if you understand it. Debt doesn't pause because you're busy. And markets don't stop collapsing just because you choose not to watch. The world is moving, shifting, and resetting, whether you like it or not. The people who stay asleep will wake up to find their wealth evaporated, their freedoms limited, and their future decided by others who saw the change coming. This is not a time to scroll, it's a study, not a time to react, but to prepare. The window to act is open now, but it won't stay open for long. Every crisis in history has had a clear message for those willing to listen, adapt, or vanish. Those who deny the signs always become victims of them. The same pattern repeats itself through generations. People ignore the warnings, trust the wrong voices, and then wonder how they lost everything. You can already see it happening. Prices rise while wages stagnate. Debt climbs while savings shrink. Political division deepens while leadership fails. Yet millions still believe that somehow everything will work itself out. But nothing works itself out. It falls apart until someone brave enough decides to fix it. The world rewards the awake, not the asleep. The 2025 shutdown should be the shock that breaks the illusion. It's proof that the system can't even sustain itself, let alone protect you. The government isn't in control of the economy. It's trapped by it. Every policy they pass now is an act of desperation, not design. They're trying to manage a collapse while pretending to lead a recovery. If you can see that, you're already ahead, because awareness is the first step toward independence. Once you wake up to the truth, you stop waiting for others to act and you start building your own foundation. You stop fearing uncertainty because you realize the only true security is the one you create yourself. The people who will shape the next chapter of this country aren't in Congress or on television. They're the ones quietly preparing now. They're learning, saving, building, and thinking for themselves. They're rejecting the illusion of safety for the reality of self-reliance. Every shutdown, every market crash, every crisis is a test of awareness. Most will fail because they confuse distraction with peace. They believe that ignorance protects them when in fact it's the very thing that destroys them. The moment you start paying attention, you see the opportunities hidden in the chaos. You begin to understand that the system isn't built to serve you. It's built to survive on your obedience. Wake up to the truth that freedom isn't a political slogan. It's a personal discipline. It means questioning what you're told, preparing for what's coming, and acting before you're forced to. Don't wait until the bank freezes your funds or the market erases your savings or the government tells you what you can own, earn, or say. Wake up now while you still have the power to choose. History doesn't forgive those who sleep through turning points. The future will belong to those who saw the collapse not as an end, but as a beginning. The signs are all around you. The warnings are loud, and the cost of ignorance is rising by the day. Wake up, not out of fear, but out of purpose. Because once you see clearly, you can no longer be controlled. And that is the first step toward true freedom.